Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Warrior Season 2, Episode 9. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I say great, but it's still like a super uber depressing and heartbreaking episode. And I guess I should have figured, but I was still holding out hope that maybe Jacob could make it out of this, but of course he couldn't. And it's so sad when you open the episode from his perspective. The fact of the matter is that that Penny gave him money to disappear, and it's the point I brought up last episode of Penny seen firsthand what they do, because she's like, right, we'll tell them you were defending me, but Jacob's like, you've seen how they treat Chinese, and that's why she couldn't argue back. It's like, right, take this money, you get out of here, thank you. He's like, thank you, and she's like, no, thank you. And that's just the sad thing of it. She tried to make him disappear, and Sophie, because Sophie said something last episode, granted, they were put in a tough spot because Buckley was kind of like, oh, if it isn't going to be you, or if it wasn't Jacob, it's going to be your sister. Somebody's going to have to take the fall for this. It's like, let's not put it out there that he was an abusive bastard that was about to kill his wife and his sister-in-law. Let's kind of ignore that, all that they focused on, because no one publicly knows what happened. It's like, would it matter? No, it's still at the end of the day going to be a Chinese man killing a white man. That's all that's going to read. Who cares about context? Because context doesn't matter in this situation, and that's the most depressing thing. So, and especially because they cut it deep, because it turns out, hey, Jacob's got a sick mom, and I guess every bit of money he's making for working for the for Penelope's family, probably just he'd send it back to his mom. So he took a good chunk of the money he had gotten from Penelope, and he gave it to his mom, and he's like, right, so-and-so is going to be here afterwards. I don't know if that was like a sibling, maybe he has one or two siblings, or maybe that's just a family friend, someone to look after her, and that just makes it that much more. They added that in there to gut you even more, to be like, yeah, everything he did was, that's why he specifically took that job, because it's a decent paying job that allowed him to take care of his mom. I don't even know if Penelope and them knew about that, but he went to Chow, and even I'm like, is Chow actually going to help him out or not? Is Chow going to sell him out? And for them to end up finding Jacob, it's like, you're like, they had to, there's no, why would you, you're checking everything, but a whole bunch of dead bodies, why would you bother checking? And then Lee's like, that doesn't make any sense, Bill, how we just happened to find him. It's like, oh, you got in. It's like, right, Chow sold him out, specifically because Mai Ling forced his hand. We don't know what Mai Ling said, but he's like, right, I didn't really have much of a choice, did I? Because Chow, it doesn't feel good, because it's like, Chow's like, you know what they're going to do. They're going to hang him. It's like, yeah, but did he do it? Because even Mai Ling isn't looking at the context, because no one knows the context except for Buckley, except for the police chief. Leary, Sophie, and Penelope are the only ones who have the context, which three of those could care less about the context of why he did what he did, even though it should be noted, and no one's going to pay attention to that. No one's going to care, and that's the most infuriating thing, because he was defending the woman he worked for. If it wasn't for him, she would be dead, but no one will ever notice that. And I hope Penelope gets her opportunity to speak out. It's like, right, you murdered him? My husband tried to kill me, and he saved me. And what did you think of? How did you think him? You rioted, you were like a mob, and you hung him like he was some, and I feel, because it's like, not even, it's like, because later on, Sophie uses the term oh, they treat him like an animal. It's like, an animal doesn't deserve, I get it, because it's supposed to be I'd say they treat him like a bug, because that's the universal thing. Not everyone, most people hate bugs. Animals, let's kind of take that off the table, because most people are animals don't deserve that, and I think most people be like, yeah, let's say a mosquito, because they're the most hated thing. So it's like, yeah, it's less than, and that it's always been there, and that's that moment where I think for the first time because Sophie's lived her privileged life where she's never really seen the ugly side of things, and now she has. She's seen the really ugly side of humanity, of what they're capable of, and it opened her eyes. And it's just kind of like they treated him like less than an animal. And Leary had to be like, well, this is the world. Like, go back to your castle and with your pretty things. You were just a tourist here. Like, you're getting mad at me like I didn't. It was like, the thing is, he didn't really do anything. Like, he helped out the cops because it's like, yo, these, regardless of it, these are our brothers. We shouldn't be turning on each other. We should be focusing on the Chinese. That's Leary's point of view. That's why, I mean, but even he wouldn't have been able to do anything. But you could tell it hit Sophie so hard because for her, she's going to blame herself because at the end of the day, she's the one that gave the cops Jacob's name. Regardless of it, because she's like, right, like, she thought, like, he'll get due process and stuff like that, yada, yada, yada. Because once again, she might not have been here, like, obviously she wasn't here on screen, but she wasn't, like, in the muck of everything that went down. Like, I don't know if what happened to Assam, like, mattered at all. Like, I don't know if that even got to her. Like, maybe Penelope never even told her about it. Because I think her sisters were, because once again, one of her sisters is abroad right now, like, at school or whatever. But I don't know if, I think they were both, like, even though we didn't see them on screen, but I think canonically they were here in San Francisco during season 1, I think. So that's why I'm like, either they were out of, like, not here in San Francisco at that time, or they were here, but it's just kind of like, why would news about some Chinese guy, like, getting arrested and potentially, like, on trial, like, why would that resonate and matter? But for her, it's just like, right, seeing a mob, literally, let's not even use the word hanging, let's use the, like, very specific word, they lynched him. And that's, it opens her view, especially for her, where it's like, she's been with a guy who supports stuff like that. Like, even he recognizes how messed up that is, but at the same time, he's also not going to shed too much of a tear, because it's like, right, that's another Chinese person removed from the board. Who cares? Like, he's been all about that, But at least, like, for him, he's always made it perfectly clear he ain't about a fair trial, considering, like, he tried to put people in the prison to, like, kill Assam. So it's like, no, like, let's not get it twisted on who Leary is. But now I think for the first time, Sophie's kind of seeing how far he will go and what he's all about when it comes to this cause, Because he's like, I try to warn people this would have happened, but no one listens. Like, they need to go back to their own country, yada, yada, so on and so forth. It's like, right, it was only a matter of time before, like, things escalated and got this bad. But it's just like, damn, dude, it sucks. I was hoping maybe, like, Bill would have been able to shoot him down, but it's like, if he did that, like, I wish Bill did more, but it's also like, what could you do in that situation? It's just like, there's so many people, you pop off that shot, like, that's going to fall back on you. They're going to kill him regardless. There's too many people. There's literally 8 of them, and they don't have the manpower to fight back against that massive crowd who also have weapons too. You're trying not to shoot any of them, because if you shoot any of them, that'll pop off on its own, because Bill's kind of like Leary's like, yo, like, why are we beating up our own? Bill's kind of in the same regard, like, we can beat the shit out of them, we just can't kill them. So, like, let's not kill our own, especially over a Chinese person. Kind of back to the Mai Ling and Chow of it all. Like, Mai Ling tried to justify it like, hey, at the very least, they will leave Chinatown alone. They got their pound of flesh. We don't have to worry about it. Problem is, Mai Ling underestimated the fervor, because that's always been there. Once again, because kind of taking a little bit from that Penelope and because, like, for Sophie, it's like, yeah, it feels like the world's upside down. And Sophie's like, no, Penelope's like, no, this is the world. That's the thing. It's always been like this. She has just been in a privileged situation and never really see the ugliness in it all. And to be fair, she's kind of played her own part in all of this too, where it's like, yeah, you helped to blow up that factory where a lot of Chinese labor was getting their work, and you also kind of sold Jacob out. It's like, Jesus, dude, like I said, he did not deserve that. And even she would recognize, like, right, he deserved to be, like, let go. But it's just like, once again, they were also put in a situation where Buckley was like, oh, either you could take the fall or Jacob could take the fall. Someone needs to take the fall for this. And Penelope probably won't be able to say publicly what happened. I hope she's able to have a platform to do it, but it's like, they'll probably keep it hush-hush about the mayor, like, wrapping his hands around her throat and hitting her and strangling her, But either way, like I said, Mai Ling underestimated that hate, that fervor, that they, it's like, right, she's like, once they got their pound of flesh to leave us alone, it's like, no, it was an excuse. It gave them an excuse to, like, feed, like, all the hatred that was already there. It's always been there. It's not even been simmering. It's been burning, not even under the surface, blatantly burning, like, out, like, on the outside, and they just finally, this powder keg has always been on fire, and it just finally blew up, and they stormed into Chinatown attacking everyone. You see this mom holding her baby, protecting herself. There's a little girl, like, standing in front of her mom's dead body. Like, people's homes are being reached into. People's, like, stands are being destroyed. Chow ducks into Atoy's brothel, and they go and see Atoy. She's messed up. Obviously, her situation predates all of this, but it's still kind of that mentality of, yeah, we can kind of do whatever we want to. And it's like, well, how many were there? It's like 2. And it's like, just 2 people? And he's like, and Atoy's like, they were big motherfuckers. And Mai Ling seeing, like, the destruction that's happening in Chinatown, it's like she was trying to avoid this, thinking what she did would do that, but in actuality, yeah, you got Jacob killed for nothing. In fact, his murder, his death, popped all of this off. Like, you know, so it's a lot of contingency factors, but every factor matters into leading to this point. It's once again always been a blazing fire, and it just finally, like, set off the keg. But Mai Ling is treating Atoy's wounds while Atoy's big dude and Chow handle business downstairs. Yo, home dude, I was almost expecting, I was like, is he about to do a Bane Batman Batbreaker? No, which he kind of did, but it's like stretching the guy's arms and foot to his back. Crack! I was like, Jesus! Literally audibly yelled out Jesus during that scene. Like, obviously, Chow's not a fighter, but it's like, yo, he knows how to scrap. He knows how to survive. That's also the thing, too. I think I brought that up previously. I think I brought that up last episode, whether I was like, I wonder would Chow help out or not. Because Chow, as we know, was a slave, and so maybe there's a little bit of that. That's why it cuts even deeper, where it's like, Chow is all about himself in certain moments. For him, it's like, geez, like, I made this guy a promise. And I think it's like, it probably makes him think to, once again, all the people he probably thinks about from time to time that he left behind in Cuba when they were slaves 11 years ago. No, I can't remember. Yeah, it was like 11 years. I was about to try to say, like, wasn't he a slave for 11 years? I think so. I don't know if we know I don't think it was 11 years ago. I think he was a slave for 11 years, if I remember correctly. I think it's like, we don't know how long ago it was. That either way, not really important to kind of get too caught up in, like, that specific detail, but still, like, he was a slave, and so I think, right, it's like he knows what these people are capable of, and he knows what they'll do to Jacob, and it's like, right, I gave him my word. And for Chow, it's like, yes, he plays all angles, but his word is his bond, and it's like, I sold that man out to his death, you know? Zing is a terrible human being. He deserves, because Chow knows, like, right, he was just, like, he kind of cut Jacob off, but he knows, like, right, the guy was scared. He had to have his reasons for doing it. It's like, any reason why anyone else would have a reason to, like, kill, like, someone, you know? So gave him the benefit of the doubt. He probably heard enough of it to kind of piece it together, but it's also the situation of, like, he didn't want to know the details because it didn't matter to him, because it's like, at the end of the day, you did it, kind of like Mai Ling was saying. But her and Atoy had this really interesting conversation about, right, she's able to patch Atoy's wounds. The reason why she knows how to sew up wounds is because of her husband being a warlord. It's like, right, his man would come back hurt, and I got really good at sewing them up, because if I didn't sew them up, he would blame me for their death. And it's like, yeah, you went from being married to a warlord to becoming a warlord yourself. And, you know, at the end of the day, and they say a poignant thing that I thought immediately was, hey, this is, in this moment, there are no Tongs. There's no Long Z. There's no, there's kind of no Feng Han because they're dead, but there's no, Hopway either. At this moment, we are all Chinese versus, like, all these white people. So it is that thing of, for now, if we survive this, we could go back to our respective situations. It's like, right, you can go back to doing terrible things. It's like, you can go back to selling sex. And Atoi's like, yes, because at the end of the day, neither one of us will ever go back to who we were before. So we will continue down the paths because we can't go back after all that we've sacrificed, all that we've been through. Because for Atoi, it's like, she has done what she's done because it was her way to protect herself. She never wanted to feel weak. She never wanted to feel vulnerable, especially because I don't know how much Mylene knows about Atoi's past, but we heard about her past, of her circumstances of coming to this country, you know? So it is that thing of, this place is kind of hurt and wrecked. I mean, to be fair, it was already like that for Mylene back in China, you know, so. But kind of like with that point, I love the conversation where it's like, you know, it's like you have Assam and Young Jun, and it's like, well, what are we going to do? It's like, yo, get the guys. And it's like, what do you think we should do? Assam's like, I'm glad I'm not the one that has to make the choice, but what do you think? And for him, it's like, we've lived in their world up until now. It's time for them to die in ours. And it isn't just the hop way, the long Z, like Li Young looks at it. It's like, yo, in this moment, we got to protect China. Our beef aside, and they get to work. And, you know, like, slapping down and killing because even, like, the regular folk in China, Chinatown were fighting back, too. Sadly, it's just like, right, they were overwhelmed, especially because a lot of them aren't, for one, they're not fighters. Two, some of them are elderly people, too, but they're not, like, they were fighting back, helping each other out. Obviously, Lee ducked in to kind of help. He ended up killing Tully, who was the one who orchestrated all of this. Obviously, it doesn't matter. You cut off the head of a snake. You know, it's like a hydra. Like, more and more. Like, that fervor was already too high. Like, killing Tully, like, he led the charge, but it didn't matter. Like, this was all out of control. So, I'm kind of glad Tully got killed because he's the one that popped all this off. But once again, if it wasn't him, it was going to be someone else. Like, either way, when it's all said and done, you know, we have, the last time we saw Lee is him disappearing into the crowd after, like, helping out more and more people. So he might be somewhere in Chinatown right now, or maybe he came back home after all of that. I don't know. Because he also came from a place where he's, like, seen what hatred can do to people, like, specifically in the South, but considering his circumstances of his own family killed the woman he loved just because the fact is of who she was. And because of the color of her skin. And it's just, for him, it's like, he's already seen the treatment that the Chinese have had to deal with. And Jacob's, like, lynching was, like, the last straw, so. But yeah, like, slicing and dicing all across the board. Like, even Li Young and Assam kind of looking at each other, like, kind of backing each other up fight-wise. Then your boy, Young Jun, getting in close range. And one guy was about to kill him, but Father June showed up. It's like, what do you shouldn't be here. He's like, yeah, but you're glad I am. And it's almost this dope moment of father and son together. Cause we never seen, especially like using a gun. He picked up a gun, shot two of the guys coming towards him. So it's like, yo. And obviously everyone had eyes on Assam the moment he picked up, like he took the nunchucks, because the guy was like flinging them around being like, oh, this is fun. So interesting because it's like, obviously Hong makes a point with his chain, and now it's probably going to be Assam who gets a nickname because of the nunchucks. Because it's like, yeah, it's like, it didn't even cross my mind because it's like, yo, that's some classic Bruce Lee right there. It's like, right, you think I'm deadly with my hands and my feet. Wait till I get some nunchucks in my hand. I'm gonna beat some ass. And, like, everyone's captivated by the fact is of what Assam is doing. It's like, the moment you see him do a thing, you're like, dude, his legend is going to grow. And so he's going to become super popular. He's going to become a folk hero during this because everyone saw what he did. Like, he was laying shit down with the nunchucks. And like I said, I think that's going to be the irony. Hong is trying to make a name for himself, like the violin man, rope man. He's trying to do stuff with his chain, but it's like, I think Assam is going to be ironically the one who ends up getting a name because of the nunchucks. So, I mean, in fact, I'm so stupid. Literally the title of this episode is Enter the Dragon. I've not seen that movie in forever, dude. I haven't seen that since I was a kid. Man. Is it actually, it might not be, the title of this might not be Enter the Dragon, it might just be Enter Dragon. I think it's Enter the Dragon, but I could be mistaken. Either way, tangents and all that aside, but it's like, yeah. And then it's like, after like all these casualties and stuff, then the cops have already showed up. Obviously, it took a while to kind of get the cavalry, but they were able to shut that shit down. But, obviously you have Leary looking around at all the injured people, which I'm like, really? And you can tell he's kind of burning up a little, but I'm like, that's fucked up. Your people started this shit. They went into Chinatown, but it's like, what should they have done? Oh, like laid back and took it? From Leary's perspective, kind of. It's hard to fully say what's on his mind, but it almost seemed like he was getting pissed at them, like, oh, look at them hurting these people. Or did he feel like his own weakness? Because it's like, right, like this might motivate him to kind of take up that position, like that political position, or maybe he'll even blame Buckley for like popping all of this off to some extent, like setting this all up. But it's like, that's also the thing. Mai Ling's work with Buckley is what set this all in motion. It's like, right, he came to you about, so it's like, she also has like, feels probably doubly guilty because of the whole working with Buckley thing, but it's a means to an end. But regardless, you also sold Jacob out, and it, in fact, didn't appease things. In fact, it led to things getting so much worse. It's like, maybe if she hadn't, I don't know, the cops would have stayed in Chinatown. Eventually, they probably would have, like, the people would have walked down to Chinatown to try and find Jacob himself. So, it's sad thing is, it probably would have been an inevitability, but that's the thing. There's so many what ifs, and it's kind of a moot point now, because regardless of what the what ifs could have been, this is their reality. So, but at the end of it all, it's Hong, Assam, and Young Jun, along with some other Hopway, go to get Jacob's body. Bill's like, right, we just thought you're here to start trouble. He's like, no, we're here for him. And then Bill just kind of looks and goes, go ahead and make it quick. And Leary comes out and he kind of gives this look to Assam, almost like this nod, like, all right, like, I don't know if it's that thing of, right, you want to pay respect to the dead, and just, but it's just that burning look in both of their eyes, like they're both representing the opposition of like, your people came to my town, and for him it's like, your people like killed a lot of my people. Once again, it's like, your people are at fault here. They came to our side of town. We weren't asking for no smoke, but you wanted smoke, you got it in return, like, you know. So like, things are at their fever pitch. Obviously, the next episode is the season finale. It's probably going to pop off between Assam and Leary, potentially. But what the aftermath of this is going to be like is going to be interesting, especially because I'm sure Buckley's going to spin it the way he's going to spin it, you know. He kind of got what he wanted, and Mai Ling helped him. Like, that was always the point of like, oh, you get blood in the streets. She was thinking it'd be like the different tongs, and she'd be able to come out on top. Never knew like so many other innocent people would get caught up in the crossfire necessarily. Like, once again, she was so focused on her own ambition that it's like, right, you get tunnel vision, just like Assam's gotten tunnel vision with him going after Mai Ling. So how this all plays out, we'll ultimately have to wait and see where the season finale takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.